had a long career. Yeah, hit the recording. Good, 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 good. To make a really long story short, I had a long career. I'm probably the oldest one here, I suspect. But I had a long career doing a lot of cool things, and eventually got to the point where I had this real calling to do coaching. How many of you guys currently have full-time jobs other than your coaching? Is that anybody? Okay. No, okay. So you guys are all in. Perfect. But I wasn't, as a lot of you can probably relate. And um, really happily married. My wife and I, we have 4 kids. So finally, I was like, I got to go do this thing. So finally, my wife was just like, "Good Lord, just go do it." I'm like, "What if our kids starve?" And she's like, "No." So she's like, "We're just so sick of hearing about it." So this was in January of 2021. So we were sort of in starting the second year of COVID. I was working at the Smithsonian at the time, and I did the evil Knievel. A lot of times when people make the transition, they can, from like a full time gig to coaching, they can sort of like do the side thing and sort of build into it. I didn't do that. I did the jumping over the 900 cars, and hoping our kids wouldn't starve. They're still alive, so that's good. And so that was 4.5 years ago. And so when I first, yay, that's right. And so when I first started doing it, like I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. But the one thing I had a lot of clarity on was investing in good coaching. And and I did. I invested in a series of coaches. And I guess by the time I met Ruben, it was I want to say it was the spring of was it 2 years ago, or it was 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
Ruben. I can't remember, but it was a while ago. And at that point, I'd had some success, but I was probably, and Ruben, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I was doing everything by myself for sure. Like I had some VAs working with me, but
Yeah.
I was doing all my own coaching, all my own enrollment, and I'd had some really good coaching up till that time. And there was this guy Ruben who I'd seen, and he was really good at engagement, and his stuff just really appealed to me. So I just sort of like, and I'm old, right? So I'm not really good with like DMing, and so I'm better now. But like I'm like, it's all email, but I've gotten better. And like, and so I think I messaged him on Facebook, and he wrote me right back, and I was like, okay, I'll have a conversation with this guy. And I went into it. I was very sure this is going to be one of those calls. It's going to be interesting, but I'm not going to sign up for another program. And of course, sure shit, I did. Right? Sure shit. I mean, it was like, okay, yeah, this is really clear. And the beginning where it was Ruben had talked about was scaling up, just like fixing the leaks. I remember Ruben talked about, like he was like,
Yeah.
Eric, you got to leaks, because I didn't have a lot of trouble like connecting with people. I didn't have so much trouble finding people, but there was just a lot of leaks in the different parts of
Yeah.
my system. So I would find people,
Let
but
me
then
let me
yeah,
interrupt here.
please,
Let
please,
me
please.
interrupt here. So what we noticed, so Eric, you were doing about, I think about 15-ish thousand dollars a
If
month.
15 would
And
have been a good month, it would have been a good month.
good month.
10 would
Good
have been
month.
average.
So
Yeah.
so one of the things that we notice with a lot of entrepreneurs at this stage is a couple different things. We notice the revenue roller coaster, but we also
Yes.
notice a split of focus. I remember on our first call, Eric was
Yes.
like, I could do career coaching, I could do corporate coaching, I could do scuba diving coaching. And I was like, whoa, we really need to settle on something. So
Yeah.
basically, to start, the first two things that I noticed is, okay, where was most of your revenue coming from? I kind of
So
dug
I
deep and
remember
you were like,
this.
yes,
Right.
these like workshops, and then people become clients and I like get them jobs. And I was
Well,
like,
Ruben,
that
you
seems to
even
work.
asked me to look at my numbers, and I was like, "What do you mean numbers?" I was like,
Yeah.
"You were like,
So we looked at
yeah,
the numbers.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
second thing that I noticed you mentioned is like the roller coaster revenue of where
right,
you would have these months of going crazy on getting clients. You would get so filled up with clients that you'd be so busy delivering that your marketing would suffer, right? And if anyone has kind of gotten to probably like a $20,000, $30,000 a month, you'll probably notice how that feels, where all of a sudden it's like, I got so many clients, it's fantastic. I don't have as much time to market. I don't have like as much time to get on sales calls, etc. And so that was kind of the first thing I noticed with Eric is, okay, we needed to, number one, focus. Okay, hone in and focus. It's so funny. A lot of people who are brand new in business, we tell them to niche down then. The thing that happens is if you don't niche down then and you get to starting to make money, you have to niche down eventually. So like it's going to
yeah,
happen at some point, which is why we always recommend just do it at the beginning. And so we honed in, and then What was the first scary thing that I told you that you needed to outsource?
Oh, so much, right? So much. So I had people. I had like I think I had three VAs at the time who were great.
Yeah.
And but the first thing was um I- Ruben noticed that I was spending a lot of my time doing the coaching. A lot of time, and I love to coach. I mean, that's why I got into this. I'm a pretty damn good coach. And he was like, "What if you had some other people coach you?" And instantly I was like, "But they won't do as good of a job, and the reason they're signing up for the program is me." And I remember very distinctly Ruben saying, "Eric, you need to get some friends." Like
Yeah.
people don't sign up for your program because of you. They sign up because they want the result. And I understood that at one level, but another level I was just like with fees, right? I remember there was a time where I was like, I know that they will only and so what I find so often with coaching is knowing's the enemy of learning, and the more shit we know, it works against us. The opportunity is
Yeah.
to know less,
Yeah.
know
100%.
less, know less.
And
Tell me,
this,
yeah,
this is a big difference, right? So we went to the place of where it's like, okay, we need to hire someone to help you deliver the service. Now,
yes,
this isn't going to be for everyone, okay? But the principle of understanding when you get maxed out, you have to either, I say, delegate or automate something. Okay. So, and the process, and just so if anyone's curious about this, the process of when you get to that place of having too many hats and doing too much is you do a time audit, right? I've gotten Eric to do a time audit. I'm
yeah, it
probably
was
more than
great.
once. But basically just being like, okay, Eric, where are you spending all your time? Where are you spending all your time?
Yep,
And figuring out where you're spending all your time. And for him, I mean, he would go into these phases of getting so many clients that he would just be on client calls all day, every single day.
that's
Neela's
right.
doing a time audit now. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Great.
So in business, for most of you, and for Eric, we chose to do the coaching because the way that his system was set up, that it made the most sense to delegate that one off the bat. For some of you watching this, it might actually be if you're using some of our Instagram strategies or even Facebook strategies, it might make more sense to get like a setter involved first because Eric actually already had setters involved. He had setters involved that were generating leads, messaging people, etc. So the first thing that we look at is when you have too many hats is hire someone. Now, what changes in your business happened because you hired these coaches, Eric? What did you start to see as far as stabilization instead of the roller coaster? And even like you not having to be as busy? What kind of did you
Yeah,
see?
it was amazing. And at first it was scary because now it was just like another, and I'm still working through this. Like Ruben, I think I paid this month, I paid 30,000 or $35,000 to other people,
Yeah,
like, which is insane, right? But which was way more than I used to make back then. I mean, so at this point I was maybe making 15-ish, right? 15 revenue, this revenue and so it was a little scary, and of course I was sure that every person that I know a lot of coaches, so finding coaches wasn't an issue for me, and they were coaches I deeply trust and have known for years, and
yeah,
I was still sure that people would want a refund immediately, and it
yeah,
didn't happen. It didn't
yeah,
happen.
yeah,
And I help a lot of people with job stuff, and then somebody like got jobs. I was like,
yeah,
holy shit, it works. And so then not just I didn't have just one coach, I got like a couple. And they were
yeah,
super happy to have the clients. And I was like, this is pretty amazing. So then as a result, so just sort of like we audited where's the money coming from, we audited the time, and now I had all this extra time. So now guess what I could do? A lot more enrollment calls.
yeah,
And that was
100%.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
So this was, I don't know, this was, the timeline here is, like this they were about in about 6 months, 6 month chunks that this,
yeah,
happened. And so then I was really busy doing enrollment calls all day. I was maybe doing like 10 a day. It was insane.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And like I was really tired because I've got kids and I like to sleep and all that kind of thing. And so, and then we went through the same cycle again.
yeah, 100%. So let's break this down. So Neela's asking, what is your ad spend? I don't think Eric has an ad spend right now.
I don't have any ad spend.
So Eric, because he's a career coach, we are utilizing LinkedIn as a platform, and he's utilizing something called LinkedIn Recruiter to generate leads. So he spends money on LinkedIn Recruiter. Like he has to pay a couple of grand a month. I think something like 4 or 5 grand a month to have access to LinkedIn Recruiter. So in a sense, it is his ad spend, but it's a different way of doing it. So Eric, when what happened is though we got the coaches coming in, your business almost kind of doubled. I think we were close to like 25, $30,000 a month.
Yeah,
And there was
yeah,
volatility, right? Because you didn't go into the season of being too busy to market. Now you were consistently marketing and you had coaches.
right,
And I remember the season of us being like, hey, great. Now we need to basically, whenever you solve one problem in business, another problem occurs, right?
right,
So we solved the problem of, okay, now we can deliver to more clients than ever, but now we're kind of just converting the amount of leads that are coming in, and we need more leads actually. So I remember
right.
when all of a sudden you were figuring out the LinkedIn recruiter stuff and you were like, hey, we could do more of this. And I don't know what
Yeah,
the multiplier was, but I
yeah.
think like you were like, I can do
This was
five to
yeah,
uh,
this was about a year ago, right? And so a year ago, and I remember like last fall, I remember distinctly like my number was I was really happy to be making consistent $30,000 months,
yeah,
right? Which was great. And I did change some things and did a bunch of things, right? To sort of up like to scale up in terms of the number of people I was reaching.
yeah,
Um and that was working. And so and then I also did some things like there were some things with the calendar where it wasn't just cyclical in terms of feast or famine in terms of like, okay, we've got a bunch more clients now, I have to coach them. But it was also like seasonal in terms of the time of the year. So like last year, Terry was like, we're gonna do a Black Friday thing. And so I was on that like gangbusters. And so instead of
yeah,
my December normally being
yeah,
like boop, it was like decent. This was just last December. I got to get my act together for this coming Black Friday, right? Because we're gonna do it again, right? And so by the beginning of the year, I was having consistent $30,000 months. And then I think in January, I had like January, February, I hit 70,000 for the first time, right? Which was new. But then it was like, I'm just doing all these enrollment calls. This is crazy. And
sure.
then it was like, I got to get somebody to help me do enrollment, which was a
Exactly. Yeah.
huge
We
thing.
broke, we broke the next thing. By the way, folks, you can put your questions down below if you have them as we're going through this.
Yeah,
So delivery opened up. We could deliver to more clients now than ever. So now you
right,
had more time to then market, and we figured out how to get
right,
more leads coming to your workshops. We also
right.
changed it from, I think you were doing a workshop like once a month or once every
That's
other
right.
week. It was like increase the cadence. So we started to do
That's
a
right.
workshop, right?
That's right.
Because that way we'd have more availability and we're upping the
Yep.
volume. So, and all of a sudden the lead volume was high and
Yep.
you were able to deliver to a lot of clients. But guess what? In the middle, you were stuck doing enrollment calls. So
That's
you
right.
started to map out there. And
That's
that's
right.
when, I mean, the easy, obviously, example is then we realized that the only way for you to keep growing was to hire a closer. So
Yep.
talk about the mindset shifts that you needed to hire a closer because those are scary moments. Trusting
Yeah,
someone
no, it
else.
was. Well, so I had a little bit of a false start where I'd work with somebody and there was some and it was I didn't really do it very well. Like I didn't give them a lot of training and it was sort of and then Ruben was like, Eric, if you're gonna bring on somebody to help you do closing, like you gotta spend like a lot of time with them. And so I was very fortunate to find somebody who was already very, very talented, somebody that I really clicked with in terms of that and somebody who I remember very distinctly was I want to say it was like February or March. It's so funny. I got a text that they had enrolled 3 people that day. And
Yeah,
I was at a mastermind and I was like, how did that just happen? I wasn't on the enrollment call and I just made about 18 grand. Like, I mean,
yeah,
revenue, right? I was like, how did that happen? And you know what's so funny is just in the time we've been sitting here, I just saw my phone go off.
yeah,
Like, I've had 3 enrollments while I've been on this call, right? And that's a
yeah,
lot. Usually it doesn't happen all within an hour, but it just did. So
yeah,
that's cool, right? So, like,
yeah,
so that's good news for Coach Eric. Anyway, but
yeah.
like,
There you go.
yeah, there it is. So, like, so now I'm distracted a little, but like, but by this time I'd had like 6 or 7 coaches doing coaching with me. I expanded my team of virtual assistants. I now had a team of people doing enrollment. So this brings us into like April. I had a crappy April. It sort of scared the hell out of me, and it was just some of my messaging got clunky, and I tried to do some new things rather than, well, Ruben was like, well, what did you change? And I was like, I changed this, and he's like, don't change that. I was like, I'm sorry. And as soon as I
Yeah,
changed it back, it was,
let's
yeah,
pause there. Actually, let's pause there because I
yeah.
see this happen all the time, and I did this when I was first scaling CCI back in 2019, where things were working so well,
Oh,
and I was like, I'm so
get
smart
creative.
now. I'm so smart, and I kept on like changing things that I was like, oh, I
Right.
could do this better, and then all of a sudden, like things started to work less. And I was like, why? And at that point, I had a mentor
Right.
too, just be like, when did this work better? And I was like, 3 days ago. And they're like, what did you change? This is what I
Yeah.
changed. Change it back. And
Change
I
it
was
back.
like,
Change it
well
back.
done. Right? It's kind of like if I like hardly drink any water and I feel like shit for a couple weeks. And then if I drink a lot, I'm like, ooh, I feel amazing. Keep drinking the water. Okay.
Right.
And you
Right.
see this happen all the time. And it's actually, I was just training one of my team members right before this call. And I was training one of my team members on how to do certain processes in lead generation. And she was like, okay, but like things this last week haven't been working as well as normal. And I was like, okay, what did you do differently last week that worked better than this
Right.
week? And she's like, I'm doing this more. I was like, okay, try that out. And it's
Yeah.
so simple, but oftentimes we as humans, we like new, exciting,
Of
innovating
course.
things.
Of
But
course.
oftentimes I've heard a lot of people say the mundane scales, the boring stuff scales. The
Right.
stuff that works is often not as exciting.
Right.
And that's okay. And
Right.
so I remember we were having a coaching call, Eric, and I kept on bringing it back to why did it work then? No, why did it work then? And
I was like,
finally
nothing, nothing, nothing. And then,
we
yeah,
got there. We got
we
there.
got there. We got there. And and the other thing I noticed that was I remember very distinctly is I decided, okay, I'm going to track my revenue for the last 5 years. I put it on a line graph. I just did it because I was having trouble sleeping about it. And just so you know, like this was not, we're getting like, talking about this in hindsight, it's all nice, but there were like times where I felt like I was going to throw up and like I was like, oh, we're all going to lose it. And I think there was even one point where I called Ruben. I was like, Ruben, I just took a what did I do? I just transferred a balance on a credit card, which is not something I'm used to doing, right? Because I was like, oh shit. And so, but that was fairly short lived, and I regulated my own nervous system, and we got it handled. And I changed some stuff in the workshop. But the other thing I'd noticed is when I looked at my revenue, I realized that for every year I've been doing this, it was always low in April for whatever reason, and that
Yeah,
it always went way up. And so I think in April I did 25, which was not great because by then but because now I have a lot of costs. And then
yeah,
in like May and June I did like June I did like 50, which was a pretty solid month. And then we hit July.
yeah,
And July I did 160,
yeah,
which was crazy.
yeah. Now,
Crazy.
I'm actually curious, Eric.
Crazy. Yeah.
People, like again, ask all the questions. We'll have a full-on Q&A after we go through this. What do you think that led up to that month? Because oftentimes we see this kind of like steady growth, but then also there's like these hockey curve months of where like everything has
Yeah.
clicked. The team, the lead generation, the marketing, the follow-up, all of it's clicked. What do you
Yep.
feel like clicked there?
it and it didn't click till about halfway through the month. Like the first part of July was like, and then it just like every day it was like, here we go again. I mean, it was just like it was incredible, right? And what it's exactly what you say. It's everything came together. Like everything came together, right?
Yeah,
Everything came and like it just everything was in sync.
yeah,
and and
100%.
and so that's sort of the holy grail, like, and I'm still, like, so I just had like a member of my team, like she had some health stuff, and so she's stopped working for us now, which makes me sad. She was really really good, but she's taking care of herself. But like it's things like that, right? As a business owner, it's
Yeah.
it's never like there's always the thing. And so which the opportunity, what I'm getting better at is getting in front of it, is building in redundancies, so and contingencies, so that like what's going to get in our way here? Like, what's the thing that's going to mess us up? And even if it does mess us up a little bit, it's not going to be like catastrophic and,
Yeah.
completely mess us up. So that's sort of what I'm in the business of now. And August was really good. In September, like this is September 10th, and I got to do the math, but like pretty good so far.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
good.
100%.
So
That's and
yeah,
that's one of the things that we don't talk about a lot, because, and Terry and I always talk about, like, we're definitely not financial advisors, is like you do want to make sure that you're building cushion as your business grows,
right.
right? A lot of businesses, there is high months and low months, and like your expenses do go up as you build a business, as you build out a team. And it's important that you have the type of cushion that you're able to actually like withstand
Yep.
harder months, right? Because there's going to
Yes.
be harder. Like it's not always a ticking up, right? Like that would be beautiful. That would be amazing. But it's not
No.
always the case, right?
Right.
And so we have some questions here. Curious if you
Yeah.
think LinkedIn is a good platform for functional health coaches. I know a lot of people have had good success with LinkedIn. I mean, just off the top of my head, Amy, yeah, like it is a good platform. I've worked with some health coaches on LinkedIn that have done $30,000 a month. The main thing though with LinkedIn is it's a great platform for lots of messaging. And so one of the things, like, content does fairly well, not gonna lie, but if you want to be very successful on LinkedIn, there's a ton of messaging needed, even sometimes more than other platforms. So you have to kind of weigh out the pros and cons on it. Um, but there is a lot of great stuff on LinkedIn. Also, people that are on LinkedIn on average have more money. That's just obviously a fact. But if someone's already someone working for you, I wouldn't probably kind of go off
Yeah.
one ship to jump on the other. But that being said, there are people who are very successful on it. So that's a great question.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I actually know quite a bit about a lot about LinkedIn. Sometimes I think I know more about LinkedIn than LinkedIn. And the other thing I'd say about LinkedIn is it's a little picky. So they don't
yes.
like, I mean, don't do automation on LinkedIn. Don't do that. Like they will shut you down. And even their algorithms changed a little bit to where like the ability, just like Ruben said, the ability to reach people is a little bit more limited than it was a year ago. It's all about the messaging on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Those are good questions. So, folks, let's go into a full-on Q&A. What kind of questions do you have that maybe and it be questions about your business as well? Like it doesn't have to be necessarily about LinkedIn or whatever it is, but I want to make sure that we're here today also just answering a bunch of questions for you folks. So, what kind of questions do you have? It could be what you're working on right now today, what you're working on maybe this coming month. Who would like to go first? And yeah, I'll have Eric chime in if he has some insights from what he's been through as well. Someone's got to have a question.
I'll just follow up on what
Yeah,
you said, um,
100%.
because I'm still learning the ropes here, my third week. But when you say
Yeah.
messaging, so on LinkedIn, it's not content, messaging being like short, punchy one-liners, or I mean, I don't even know how people, health coaches, like post on LinkedIn. I haven't done a lot of research on there, but what do you mean by that, I guess?
Yeah, 100%. So by messaging, basically, I mean, it is a lot of, so on LinkedIn, you connect with people somewhat in a way that you like friend people on Facebook, right? So you like connect with them, they can connect with you back. So there's different ways you can send messages to people on LinkedIn, but it is a lot of like DMing people and starting conversations. Like a lot of the stuff that Eric does is a very simple, like the first message is like, hey, are you looking for a job or something like that? Because he's a career coach. Like it's very simple. Like, hey, are you looking for a job? And what we do with a lot of people that I've worked with on LinkedIn is we try to reach out to a lot of people and quickly get them to some type of like free event that like Eric does, or get them some type of value, right? Get them something that's like formative education, like a value piece of some sort. So we're messaging a lot of people, and there's limitations to how you can message people. Eric actually knows these limitations better than me, but there's a certain amount of people you can message with a day, connect with a day. Um, some people try to use automations, but LinkedIn is not liking automations a lot these days. And so yeah, LinkedIn is a lot of that. Now you can post content, and people, if your content gets a decent amount of likes, it does get it, like the algorithm does push it out pretty decent. Like it's a pretty decent algorithm, but it takes a while for you to get that. Even like I think Eric, you have 30,000 connections or
Yeah,
something
I'm coming up on 30, but it's
on
they are
30.
hard won. Like,
Yeah, it's hard
yeah.
one, and like your content gets decent reach, right? Like it'll get a couple thousand views each, right?
Oh yeah, it'll get like on a good day I'll have like 20,000 views. But like
Yeah,
it's it's like it was easier to do like a year ago. It changed. Now it very likely could change back. But right, but
yeah.
it's like so many other things, it's always changing. But with all these platforms, like you want to be there when those changes happen, right? And if you're not there, then you miss it. So they're always going to change something, and you just like
Well, exactly.
serve people, give them value, and that I think works everywhere. So yeah.
100%. That's a great question. And I'm even curious because, like, I know I've explained here today the way that Eric has scaled, which is hiring one-on-one coaches to coach his clients, hiring closers, and different things like that. When you folks here maybe have thought about growing and scaling and building your business, I'm curious what you folks have thought about because some people want to build with like a team and really build out like a company. Some people want to do like a micro version of that. I would love to hear a little bit of like how you see yourself growing your business and like maybe speak some insight into that. So, who has like maybe some questions around like how to scale and the different ways to scale in basically just trying to find out what's best for you folks? I'm curious. I'm just going to call out some people soon because if we don't get a volunteer, then we have to do a voluntold situation. So let's start, Tiffany. Tiffany, let's go with you. I'd love to know a little bit about your vision over the next 12 months. And like, I want to maybe speak some insight into like the growth patterns that you're looking to get.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to say I'm still in that acquiring new clients and, hitting 10K months is all over the place. One month I do it, one month not. So that's where I'm at. But I definitely see the importance of hiring once I get to that spot and delegating, whether it's
Yeah,
coaching or assistant type work, but I'm just not there yet. But I do
that's
see the
totally
value. I see the value in your coaching for sure, and who I work with, Morgan. So that's been huge. I guess
100%.
I can't answer that because I'm not there yet. I still
That's
feel
okay. That's
new.
okay. So that's the important thing is to like work on one stage at a time, right? And so like with where you're at, it's basically I always tell people with when you're in a stage like yours, it's just all the focus is on client acquisition and client delivery, right?
Yeah.
And increasing the volume of those things. You're
Mhm.
going to get to a natural point of where you can't keep going. And
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a really important thing to understand. And actually here, and maybe I'll ask this to Eric, what did it feel like when you got to the point of like, okay, like I'm at that like breaking point of like I'm wearing too many hats, just so that maybe people like Tiffany, that maybe in the next couple of months, if you get to that point, you kind of can like feel it out of like, okay, I'm there. So
Absolutely.
Eric, maybe
Yeah.
Yeah.
talk into
Yeah, no, thanks, Ruben. I mean, I still feel that quite a bit, and I'd read a couple of books all at once. I'd read Who Not How by Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan, right? The other book, and he's a Canadian like Ruben, is Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. You know that book, Ruben, right? Like, but basically they all are. The E Myth would be another one, right? Basically all the same message, saying like, you can't do it all by yourself if you want to grow. Like, you can't, right? And so for me, because I'd had a long career where I'd had people that worked for me, like in like government and places like that, I sort of had that, that sense of like delegate as much as you can, right? And so that and managing people wasn't new to me at all. But it basically was like, I don't know, at some level it was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I was
yeah.
like that thing, like I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do more of this. And in order for
Mhm.
me, like, and then the question is, what am I more committed to? Like being the hero and being the one that, when clients get success, like I get all the glory, or am I more committed to service?
Yeah.
And at least
Yeah.
on the back of a napkin, that's an easy calculation.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. And a good maybe metric to look at, Tiffany, is you'll notice that right now you probably have X amount of hours per week to market and sell, and X amount of like hours to like deliver. And you're going to get to a place, usually people, it's somewhere between, I find it's somewhere between 12 and 20K months, depending on your price point. You're going to get to a place where your marketing and enrollment time starts to drop. And that's the warning sign you want to look for. Because as soon as it starts to drop, your revenue won't drop right off the bat, but in 3 months, it might start to curve down. So I would just kind of like take notice of your time. And as soon as you're like, I can't take as many maybe enrollment calls, or I can't spend as much time prospecting as I used to, that's and if finances make sense to like hire someone, of course, that's when you make that move, right? That's when you
Yeah.
make the move of like, and for a lot of people, Tiffany, in your space, we do play a little bit in between like hiring someone to help with the prospecting and the delivery. Those are usually the first two hires, right? Like either a prospecting admin assistant or someone to help you with the coaching, because the coaching and a lot of you people do like labs and stuff like that is takes quite a bit of work. So any questions on that, Tiffany, or does that make sense?
No, I'm looking forward to less anxiety about the messaging and more anxiety about delegating, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah. The,
100%.
the other,
But that
the
makes
other,
full sense. Yes.
the other thing that I would add to that is what I notice is when you start missing out on opportunities.
Yeah.
So somebody, and I'm so guilty of this, right? Somebody emails me, I would really like to work for you, work with you. And like, oops, I didn't email them back for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's a sign. And the beautiful thing right now, Tiffany, is like I know you want to get to the place where maybe you don't have to do as much of the messaging yourself. The fastest way to get there is to become an expert at it and to make sure that it's proven that it works for you, right? Find the proven way of making it happen and that it works really well and it's profitable, and then hand off. Because what a lot of people do, I see this happening all the time, is they don't like something in their business, they don't get good at it, they don't know how to do it themselves, and they just hand it off. Now, for some things that might make sense, like a lawyer or a bookkeeper. Yeah, I'm not gonna go to school to like learn those things. That makes sense to just delegate it out. But something like messaging, you have to
Mhm.
become good enough. I always say you have to become dangerous enough that you can do it yourself. And then you hand it off to someone else. And that's, you just have the power to do it. So I always tell people the fastest way to get to where you want to go is through, not around it.
Not around.
And
I
so,
understand.
it's,
I
yeah,
have a
it's
question
becoming,
about Eric mentioned doing workshops. Is that something that really helped you grow?
Yeah.
Is that
I
something
heard,
in the health
yeah.
space that you would recommend?
Oh, sure. I mean, I
absolutely.
mean, yeah. I, I mean, I heard somebody say the other day that a business can thrive on one good lead magnet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's all it takes
Yeah.
is if you get one good lead magnet, that can make $1 million business. And that's been the case for me. Like my go-to is that workshop. There's nothing more. And like, I'll even like, I did it yesterday. Yeah, I did it yesterday. I had 200 people there and it was awesome. But like, and I had a lot more registered, but like, I didn't get a lot of sleep the night before, and the workshop was okay. But what I find is when I get at least like 6 hours, maybe five, which is a lot for Coach Eric, then which is not great. Health coaches, I Terry, right? I feel you, right? And like for every hour more of sleep I get, I probably make another 10 grand off those workshops. So
You
just
can
because
sleep
I'm
a
just,
lot more.
yeah, it would be good, right? It would be, yeah, I could use some health coaching on this, right? So like,
So,
yeah,
and I want to piggyback off of that, which is like number one, Tiffany. Yeah, absolutely. Workshops work so well for basically any type of coaching education industry. And what Eric says is so important. He said one great value piece can be the game changer. Even I've been reading a little bit of some different books. There was a mentor that we're working with. He built his business up to $50 million a year off of one ebook. It was just one ebook, okay? But it was just incredible. So now we often talk about how like you can have different value pieces like ebooks or videos or whatever it is. But what we noticed with, and this is something we noticed right at the beginning, I noticed, I should say, with Eric, was I'm just like, it seems like, because I asked you, I was like, hey, where did all your clients come from? And I was like, gather all this data. And he's like, oh yeah, majority came from like these random workshops that I ran. And I was like, why don't you do those more? And it's like, I haven't thought about that, right? And so and by the way, you like a workshop will work well if a couple things are true. You're good at workshops and you can get better at workshops, right? You can become skillful at it. But number two, if all of a sudden your like ideal clients will watch it, that's obviously a big thing. So if people are going to show up and watch and you're good at delivering, I mean, it's the best. Basically, think of it like this. When you guys do a discovery call, it's a 1-to-1. If you do a workshop like Eric does once a week, it's 1 to 200 people. He's basically just selling to them all at the same time. And then depending on the workshop, but Eric will book 20 or 30 sales calls off of that, right? So like maybe like a 10% of people will book or something like that. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question, Tiffany. If you like doing workshops, if they worked well, or even if you haven't done them, they're amazing to try. So really good to try. So, do we have got any other questions here? Let's say, um, Eric and sleep. Yeah, exactly. Oh, Eric, you need to sleep more. Heather is
I
saying,
want
guess I.
to.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get there. There you go. Awesome. So Margot's doing her first online workshop next week. That's awesome, Margot. I hope that goes amazing. Here, let's do this actually. Eric, what are your top tips for someone who's doing maybe their first workshop or just getting into workshops? Maybe talk a little bit about the structure, how you
Sure.
structure it out, and also talk a little bit about the pitch that we kind of like crafted over the different months to
Yeah.
like get more people booking in. Let's maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and mine's really evolved. I usually do mine for about an hour, and I've done it in all sorts of different ways. I've used different platforms. Right now, I use StreamYard. What I find works really well for me is like, for instance, in this, like I wouldn't want, because I've tried it, I wouldn't want to have a workshop where I'm on a Zoom room and I see all these faces or like
Yeah.
blank boxes. Like that's not great. So like Zoom has a webinar function. It's a little bit expensive, or like StreamYard, or find a platform, or you can actually do it on Facebook even, right? You could use a Facebook event, right? I've seen it done where it's you talking and presenting, and you got people in the chat. That's what I found works really well. And then it's me responding to people in the chat, right? And them
Yeah.
engaging and asking questions, and that has worked really really well. And the nice thing about that is if like let's say you only have 3 people show up, well, nobody actually knows that, right? And so
Yeah.
then you can all of a sudden have a list of questions that people have sent you, and you can just respond to the questions, like, and as far as they know, like, oh, I'm not seeing those questions in the chat, but he must be getting it from somewhere, right? And you can have a
Yeah.
really active robust workshop, and the 3 people who were sitting there, or I even did a workshop one time, I recorded it, I had nobody attending.
Yeah.
Right? I know there was nobody there. And I just pretended like there was, and I recorded it, and then I released it. And as far as people knew, oh yeah, you had that workshop. I wasn't able to be there. Well, it turned out nobody was.
Yeah.
It was awesome,
100%.
right? And so I don't know if Ruben's done that. I get the feeling he might have. But like
I've had 0 people show up for a workshop before, 100%. Yeah. So
yeah.
let's go over a couple different things. Talk about how you pitch at the end, and then we have some people
Yeah.
talking about low show up ratio. So maybe we'll talk about how to increase show up ratio to a workshop
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
So
lots
let's
of,
talk,
I mean, I've learned lots of things. Yeah. So in terms of inviting people, so again, this is a little bit of a philosophical thing, but I very much treat the workshop as, this is going to be something where you're going to get served. And if this was helpful and you'd like to, if you have a little voice going off in your head that you'd like to have more of this, let's find time to talk and explore what's possible for you. Right. And I've done it. Ruben knows this, right? Sometimes I'll describe it as a coaching call, and then I get a bunch of people sign up, and then a lot of people sign
yeah,
up who like sort of aren't really interested in investing in themselves, which isn't great for them or me. And then so lately what I've been doing is sort of framing it as, hey, we're going to have a call to explore what's possible for you, and the requirements to book this call are: one, you're going to show up, you're not going to ghost, because that sucks, don't do that. 2, you're going to be willing to get started now. And 3, you're going to at least be open to the idea of investing in yourself. And then when they go to sign up for a call, I've got pre-qualifying questions that literally ask those same questions again. And if they say, nah, I'm just kicking the tires, they get, boop, hey, here's a free resource. Go with God, we love you. Right. And then some instances, would you like to try again? And they go through it. Right. But what we're hoping for is the end result is, not everybody who books a call is going to sign up, but at least they're open to the idea, because those are the people I want to serve. Because if I can't, they don't make the investment, I can't coach them. If I can't coach them, then like
Yeah.
I'm limited in how I can serve them. That's sort of the philosophy behind it. Yeah.
100%. I love that. And Eric, do you pitch just at the end of the workshop, or do you do a little soft thing at the beginning and at the
Yeah.
end?
I've done different things. So, and I usually have some of my VAs on with me when I do this. So lately I've been doing it right at the top. I'll say, hey,
Mhm.
so a lot of you, who've signed up for this call, a lot of you don't know who I am. That's fine. You're going to get a lot of value. And some of you have signed up because you've had friend or family have gotten results. The reason you've signed up for this call is because you know about our program. You want to book a call. Here's the link. And then my VAs put in the link. Right.
Yeah.
And the other
Yeah.
thing that they will do is throughout the workshop, people are signing up. And when they sign up, we put that in the chat. That was
Yeah.
amazing when I figured out that trick.
Yeah. They're the proof of like people are booking, and then more people
People are
book off of
booking. People are
that. Yeah.
booking. That's right. Another trick that I learned that I didn't do until recently is I would have people enroll in the workshop, and I would have an email that went to them that said, "Hey, here's the workshop." But you know what they didn't get? A Google Calendar invite. So we had the epiphany of, why aren't we sending a Google Calendar invite? And we started doing that, and our show up rates went up by about 10%, because people tend to do what they agree to on Google. They follow their Google Calendar. So that helped a lot. Um, and then the other, and just so when people book the call, now what we also do is they get a message the day before they're supposed to do a call, and they say, hello, you have a call booked tomorrow. So it's Coach so and so has carved out time. Will you be there? And if we don't hear from them, we cancel the call. Or if they reply, nah, I'm just fucking around, right? We cancel the call. And then if they say, yes, I will be there, we'll say, great, see you soon. And sometimes we'll do, our technology's gotten better. So we do that by text. And so it's just all of these systems.
Yeah.
And Ruben's helped me with so many of these. And hi, Terry, you have too, right? Yeah, those are some of the structures.
Awesome. Was there anything else that we did to increase the show up ratio? Um, Rhonda was saying that she had 40 people interested, only 5 showed up,
Yeah.
but many wanted the replay. What would be your kind of ideas as far as getting the show up
Yeah,
ratio?
so you can definitely do giveaways. So that's another thing I learned is when people come into my workshop, I like to give things away, and good
Yeah,
things, right?
you bribe them to come
Yes.
to the workshop.
Yeah, like, well, and I'll tell them, hey, during this workshop, I'm going to give away stuff to people who are there live, and it's like free courses that they want, and that also helps with
Yeah,
the engagement, right? If you got people that aren't chiming in, right? Like if right, no, I'm not doing this. This is your practice, but I was like, hey, whoever is most active in the chat is going to get 3 free coaching sessions. All of a sudden, the chat would
yeah,
suddenly get way more active.
yeah,
Now, do that to a group of 50 people. Or even say, hey, whoever gets the right answer is going to get a free course. Like, you're going
yeah,
to follow me on LinkedIn and message me, and I'll send it, like that kind of stuff. And there's so
yeah,
much more we could do that we're not doing, but all that.
yeah. 100%. I love that. And that's a lot of people here were asking about the show up ratio. And that's show up ratio
Yeah.
for either showing up for sales calls or like workshop is just
Yeah.
incentivize it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you can be like, yes, we can send out the replay. However, the people who are getting live are getting all of these bonuses.
Right.
Like, plus you get your questions answered live, so you actually get more of the value, right?
Yeah.
So incentivize people, and then also just remind them. A lot of people just forget to remind people, like
I forget they're
remind them
busy.
24 hours before, maybe even an hour before. Make sure that there's obviously an email going out. Like, make sure it's a reminder. The other thing is also, if you feel like you have people interested, but their show up ratio is low with trying all of these things, you might need to make the topic matter more valuable or more substantial in some way. What's the name of your workshop, Eric?
It's called Get Hired Fast. Get Hired
Get
Fast.
hired fast. People looking for jobs? it's get hired fast. And what's kind of like your tagline? Like what's the promise of the workshop?
Um, we're going to offer you 4 strategies and 9 tactics, so that, you can get hired in a job that makes your soul sing and pays what you and your family deserve.
Boom, boom. That's the tagline. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And
Um,
Ruben, one thing I
so
want to acknowledge you for is, and Ruben, I don't know that there's anybody better than you and Terry on this. And I'm working to is the idea that, what is it, like they need 7 hours of touch points or 9 hours of touch
yes,
points for
yes,
somebody will buy from
yes,
you.
7
So a
hours.
workshop
Yeah,
is just part of that. But if you're also sending them videos and content, by the time they actually get invited to a sales call, they're going to want to show up. And by the time they show up to the call, they're going to want to enroll because they love you. They've seen your
yes,
stuff. They feel like they know you. So that's a huge part.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's massive. I mean, that's part of the reason that a workshop works so well, is because if someone's actually on for the full hour, like they feel
Live.
like they really know you live, right? They're
Yeah.
chatting back and forth with you. That's where basically incentivizing live attendance and incentivizing chatting and engagement will heighten the know, like, trust factor and just makes it easier for everything, right? We often talk about how if your marketing doesn't do the job right, right? Like if your marketing is down here, you have to sell so hard to get the client. But if your marketing is super effective, you only have to sell down here to get the client. You don't have to sell as hard, right?
They show
And
up with a credit card. They're like, here I am.
yeah, literally,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
that's where just having the higher amount of marketing power, the more time that they're watching your stuff is just going to be super, super beneficial. Um, Priyanka is asking, do you do it via Zoom? So Eric uses StreamYard.
StreamYard.
So it's a platform specifically for streaming, but you could do
Yeah.
it via
I
Zoom.
used Zoom for a while. I used Zoom for a while and then I switched. So
Yeah.
yeah, you could use
And
Zoom.
then Ron is asking if you're doing them weekly, how far in advance are you talking about it? I mean, basically, I'll let you answer that. So,
No, it's the week. So we did the workshop yesterday at noon, and we were already like talking about next
next week,
Tuesday's workshop at 101 Eastern.
right after, right after.
Yeah,
So,
right after.
and the way you have to build up a high volume to get to the place of doing it weekly, right? So, like if you only have like if you can only get, let's say, 50 people interested, like some of you have been saying, I can get 40 or 50 people interested, maybe doing them every other week or once a month is good enough. But
That's what I
once you,
did. I did once a month
yeah,
for a long time. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. You need to have a higher volume for it to make sense. Like once Eric started to have 100, 200, 300 people register every single time, I was like, that makes sense to do it weekly, right? And the nice thing also with doing it that way is you need to have enough cold traffic coming in, right? Because if your audience isn't growing by the same amount of people, you
Right.
can't sustain workshops at that level, right? So that's where these people that are coming to the workshop are all brand new to Eric, basically, and probably
Most of them.
80%, 90.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
right.
that's where you have to have enough front volume. So whether you're growing your audience on Facebook or via ads or on like Instagram boosted or whatever it is, you have to have enough front end volume coming in to run them at a certain kind of like cadence, if that makes sense. So hopefully that makes sense. Folks, we got seven more minutes here. I'm sure there's more questions. What questions do you have around whether it's scaling, delegating things, whether it's workshops, whether even like sales tactics, I know, or even increasing pricing. How often did we increase pricing, Eric? I think we increased it 2 or 3 times. We increased pricing while we were working together. And
Yeah.
actually, a big thing for you also was learning to utilize financing to get clients as well. Maybe talk about
Yeah,
that a
that's
little bit.
huge. Yeah, that was a really big deal because um for a long time, and I got a ton of coaching on this. Like in my head, I was like, oh, nobody's gonna pay me more than $1,000 a month. Like that was like a real barrier. And then once I made my mouth put out words that were different than 1,000 American dollars, right?
Yeah.
Then lo and behold, like that. So that really helped. And then the other thing that, and Ruben was really good at coaching around, like, hey, as these systems build, we don't want you to make less money. So we're going to charge more, because if we're paying more, then we don't want your profit to go down.
Yeah.
So that really helped. And then yeah, I discovered a lot of financing options to offer to people. And that was massive. And I actually just recently signed up with a new one because a firm's an interesting one. A firm, like, they technically don't, the only coach they support actually is Tony Robbins, apparently. Like, that's the only one who's blessed. Like, technically a firm is like, oh, with coaching. Now Klarna is a little bit different. But I just signed up with this group. They're called Shiloh Financing, and they take a cut, but they love coaches, and they will finance people who have terrible credit. Awesome.
Yeah,
Right?
there you go.
Yeah.
Now, I want, how do you word it on the sales calls? Because I think a lot of people struggle with, like, okay, if people can't pay me, like, how do I go about approaching people if they want to finance it? What's
Yeah.
the approach that you take that, like,
Yeah.
is, yeah, that
Well, you're a
works
lot
well?
smoother at this than I am, Ruben, because I learned from you, right? But it's some version of, like, at some point you say, hey, so, when people who do this program pay me $59.97, and a lot of people pay in full, just straight up, and some people have a payment plan. How, if you were going to do the program, like, how would you, and you're probably going to correct me how I'm saying this, but, like, what would be the way you would pay? How would you say it, Ruben? How'd I do? Something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
right?
Which option would be best
Okay.
for you?
Which option would be best for you? Thank you. Right? Which option would be best for you? And then they're like, well, I couldn't afford $6,000. Great. So it looks like you're talking about a payment plan. And then this is where I turn to Ruben and be like, what do I say? But because I'll
No,
fumble
no,
it,
you
right?
know what
But,
to
like,
say. You know what to
well, it's
say.
some version of, well, so look, we have a couple of options. So some people will pay us, they'll pay us 2,000 a month for 3 months. How would that be for you? Oh, no, I couldn't do that. There's no way. Great. So I've got some other options. Now, they've got some finance fees, but we could knock this down. Like, if you only had to pay, so now I'm doing like a double tie down, right? If you only had to pay $200 a month, how would that be for you? Oh, I could definitely do that. So what you're saying is, if $200 a month, you would enroll. Absolutely. Great. Let's see what's possible. And then we look at the financing options like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And a way you can phrase it as well is you can be
Help
like,
me.
hey, we have an in-house payment plan that is a bit of a bigger amount per month, but we also have finance options that make the payments into, like, tiny amounts per month, but there's interest on those. Would you rather have, like, a bigger monthly payment, or like a tiny monthly payment?
Yeah,
Right?
he said.
There's
Yeah, you're better
realm,
at
right?
this than I am, Ruben.
So so
Yeah, it's
there's
really
different
good.
ways, of
Yeah.
going about it there. It's just like, yeah, but and then the tie down there is important, because one of the things that we often see happen is that if you say, basically, they're like, hey, if they're like, hey, I can't do the painful, we're like, hey, let's finance it. Then they're like, oh, like, well, then, like, it feels like you're coming pretty strong at it. So you want to go the curiosity route of being like, okay, if we got creative, we found a way that you could pay X amount per month, let's say, depending what the finance options look like for each of your businesses individually. If we could make something like this happen, like, would that make it doable? Like, would that be worthwhile to join the program, get these results, get the benefits? Yes, awesome. So if I can find a way here today to make that happen, you're good to go. Yes. So you're getting a confirmation of, like, they have said yes. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and try this out. We've had this work for other clients. Let's walk through it right now, right? And it's a pretty simple process for a lot of people. So I wanted to run through that quick because I thought that could be beneficial for some of you folks. So
You're really good at
folks,
that, Ruben, man. You're so good at that.
thanks, brother. Well, excited to help out. We got 2 more minutes. Any last questions for Eric or myself today? Also, I did want to ask, for those watching here today and even watching the replay, would you find it beneficial? I've been missing doing some more of these group calls since our team has taken over. Would you find it beneficial if Terry or myself jumped in and did a couple more group calls on the average? Put it down in the chat if that is something that you'd find valuable. Obviously, we know for a fact that our team is obviously amazing and they're giving you guys some great stuff. But if all of a sudden, like, you find that helpful, got a couple people saying yes, great. That's good to know. That's good to know. Awesome, folks. Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for jumping on. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Big congrats on your success. And folks, thanks for jumping on, and have a great rest of your Wednesday. Okay, bye for now, folks. We'll chat soon.